I want to touch on the meaning and significance of Cinco de Mayo because it's much understood by Mexicans, Americans, and Mexican Americans. And I want to focus on the contributions to the making of the holiday by uh, people of Mexican or Hispanic descent in Texas, known as Tejanos, and why that's important uh, for the development of this holiday. So Cinco de Mayo is really an American holiday, a celebration initially promoted in the US by Mexican Americans. It is not really celebrated in Mexico, contrary to popular opinion, except in and around the city of Puebla, where the battle it commemorates took place. So Mexicans celebrate their independence on the 16 de septiembre, or 16th of September, which means Cinco de Mayo is not Mexican Independence Day. Cinco de Mayo, or 5th of May, celebrates the victory of the Mexicans over the French in the Battle of Puebla in 1862. So let me give you the background. Using the pretext that Mexico had defaulted on a debt owed to France, and seeing that the U.S. was helpless to intervene because it was embroiled in the Civil War, Napoleon III invaded Mexico on December 8, 1861, with 6,000 troops, including a significant number of crack Algerian Zouave troops, known for their distinctive red bloomer pants and fez hats. The French began their invasion by marching through the tried and true conquest route from Veracruz to Mexico City, the route which would require them to go through the city of Puebla. The Mexican forces were led by General Ignacio Zaragoza, who was only 33 years old. Zaragoza was born in Goliad, Texas in 1829, when Texas was still part of Mexico. In a brilliant tactical move, Zaragoza engaged in the Scorchers campaign up until the city of Puebla, where he set up his last stand. Zaragoza set up his forces in and around the twin forts at the entrance to the city, Fort Loreto and Guadalupe. Zaragoza chose to battle the French in Puebla because the terrain around the forts was steep and treacherous, and featured a suicide alley in between the two garrisons. This literally helped even the playing field, as the Mexican forces consisted of less than 4,000 poorly equipped defenders, and many of those were untrained peasants. So, a little known fact is that General Zaragoza actually recruited a unit of Tejano cavalry to defend, to help Mexico um, in this battle in particular. There were 500 Tejano cavalry troops, a significant number. In fact, I believe they formed the whole cavalry unit for Mexico. So the cavalry unit was consisted of Tejanos from Palito Blanco, Corpus Christi, Brownsville, and the Rio Grande Valley, and they were led by Porfirio Zamora, who was himself from Palito Blanco. At the climax of the battle, this Tejano cavalry, represented by the orange arrows on the model on the right, the ones at the top of this picture, um, swarmed from both sides of the forts. So the forts are those, I don't know if you can tell from the picture, slightly elevated area right there where the troops are concentrated. Um, you can see the Mexican troops are in red. That's the Mexican infantry. And at the bottom, the blue troops are the French who are attacking the fort. So at the end of the battle, or during the climax of the battle, Zaragoza called for the cavalry to sweep around the forts and basically strike the final blow that sealed the French fate. The victory over one of the greatest armies in the world ignited great pride in Mexicans, not only in Mexico, but in the United States. After suffering a humiliating defeat in the Mexican American War, it was the first time Mexico had defeated a foreign invader, and the first Mexican victory after the United States annexed what is now the southwestern United States, thereby creating the first holiday for Mexicans and their descendants living in the United States. In fact, it is said that the Mexican miners of California were the first to celebrate the victory in the 1860s. But the Tejanos were not far behind, as evidenced by the newspaper article from the 1880s. It says our Mexican citizens of San Antonio yesterday commenced a 3-day celebration of the victory obtained over the French troops at Puebla, Mexico, on the 5th of May, 1862. And this is an article from the Daily Express, which I believe is a Goliad newspaper, May 6, 1882. As stated in one of the previous pictures, Mexican American communities in California and Texas formed patriotic groups and mutual aid societies to host events and ceremonies each May 5th. Thus, Cinco de Mayo was the impetus to begin the organization of the Mexican Americans in the United States, which would in turn lead to civil rights organization and action. And the pamphlet on the right says Concordia de Varones y Señoras y Ceritos. It's kind of like a parade of men and women uh, and young ladies. And it's put on by the Society of Both Sexes of Ignacio Zaragoza. And it's dated 1927 in Corpus Christi. And it lists a number of Mexican American citizens. Um, Now, these same citizens would go on to create the first civil rights Hispanic organization in the United States, the League of United Latin American Citizens, or LULAC. Now, the first or inaugural organization event to LULAC was held on February 17, 1929, and also took place in Corpus Christi. Thus, Cinco de Mayo is as much an American holiday as St. Patrick's Day, and the significance of the holiday to Mexican Americans and Americans who value civil rights, which one would hope all Americans do, should be appreciated. So now you can drink your tequila with a purpose. Happy Cinco de Mayo.